Indelible hello! It's been a little bit since Chapter 5 of DELTARUNE came out, and I've had some time to think over what has changed regarding the Forgotten Man. If you haven't seen the previous video on it, then there's no need to go back to it. I'll be reiterating my points for it later down the line in this one. Forgotten Man's honestly been one of my favorite mysteries ever, and it's just such a captivating character to me, and I'm excited to share my new thoughts. So, I'm Shiver Spirit Sword, and let's begin with Overwritten Man Theory 2.0. Let's start with a little overview on the man then, shall we? Back in Chapter 1 of DELTARUNE in old 2018, people found a peculiar little Easter egg. By going back and forth repeatedly between two rooms, there was a rare chance you would end up arriving in a different room altogether. In this room would be a scarlet tree, and a path stretching ominously towards it. Also in this room was a strange, somewhat off-putting track. This track was in reality recycled from an old project, Toby Fox's Yume Nikki fan album. The original track was made for the character Seka Misada-sensei, who was a strange, googly-eyed man that played a large piano in his spaceship. Another parallel to draw here is the mechanic of finding the Forgotten Man's room. The process of going in and out rapidly is very much akin to how you would attempt to encounter Yuboa, going in and out of Panako's room to reset the RNG chances when you flip the light switch. There's another pesky little song on this album. It's one by the name of Amphitheater, which is teased to appear in a future chapter of DELTARUNE. Back to Chapter 1, however, approaching the tree, you are prompted with, "There is a man behind the tree." And indeed, going behind it, you can interact with the man, who offers you an egg. Once given to you, the man is described as being no longer behind the tree. This egg is described as not too important, but not too unimportant. Back in 2018, there was really nothing to go off of here. There was clearly some indication these eggs would amount to something, but what exactly that was completely umbral. One thing you could do with the egg, however, is put it in Asgore's fridge. Hiding the eggs around hometown will be a recurring mechanic with these eggs in future chapters. Chapter 2 gives us a bit more of the same. Going back and forth between this room with the dumpster on the highway will take us to another egg room. This time, going behind the tree, we're informed that the man may be happy to see us. If you agree with this sentiment, then another egg is what awards you. Something I've noticed with these encounters that I'd not brought up in my previous video was how the text was worded here. With this, and indeed with many of the future exchanges, the man comes off as addressing us, not Chris. In my prior video, I was under the assumption that they knew Chris very well, and perhaps they may yet still, but I now have the suspicion that the Forgotten Man's endearing attitude is pointed towards us, the player. This time the egg is left in the store, which stands as the janitor for, causing Susie to prompt us on not understanding how stores work. Now, are you ready? Are you ready? Because Chapter 3 is the big one. Okay. Near the end of Chapter 3, while on the outskirts of TV World, there's a searchlight that you can get caught by. A zapper will interrogate you and ask where you are headed, to which you can answer, nowhere. The zapper will ominously reply, "You was already heading that way, weren't you, Chris?" before escorting you to nowhere. There's a puzzle here that can only be solved by messing up a previous puzzle in the chapter, where now a previously out-of-bound block will be on the side that you are playing, allowing you to continue. Ahead lies a room with a large minigame board of a living room, resembling the Dreamer household, and a Bibliox by the console. Bibliox is a character that doesn't appear till Chapter 4, and notably the same character who teases the aforementioned Amphitheater track, which comes from the same album as the Forgotten Man's theme. Entering the game world, the Bibliox says, "Mumble, mumble, where could this be? Nowhere. Mumble, no, this is somewhere." Going onward, if you keep pressing the Bibliox, he'll state that he'll give you a ticket to nowhere, since you are so adamant on going there. He says that the ticket was left there by someone who he forgot. He tells you that it's better that you go alone, and that the ticket is in the wardrobe. By doing the room back and forth thing once more, a wardrobe appears. Opening it, you find the ticket not inside, but rather that the ticket had been in Chris's hands the entire time. Now possessing the ticket, you can break out of bounds using it in the fight against Ravik. The Soul leaves stage left and Chris appears, in their Light World form, in the Man County. The Man County is inhabited by these Rudens, the Flying Aces, a set of fake cards Chris photocopied and colored in themselves. One of them questions why Chris had gotten so large, and we realize this world is not meant for Chris to be in. The sprite is too large, it's off style. Going left, there's a sign. "Welcome to Forgotten Island. This island is a World Heritage Site." There are also a set of binoculars on the cliffside looking towards a place that one of the Flying Aces describes as harboring great evil. Looking through it, you see some gray grass-like texture. Another ace tells us that someone was looking for Chris, and to check behind the tree. Going up from the start instead takes us to a grand building with the symbol of the angel from the DELTARUNE on it. Inside is a sanctuary with a tree. In this encounter, and this encounter only, the Forgotten Man speaks to us directly. Let's read it out. "Well,
Spring changed to summer, and summer changed to cold. And sure enough, I am the Forgotten Man. Will you forget me too?
Here we'll answer him no.
Are you sure? You have forgotten me many times before. Even if you meet me, I will be forgotten thereafter. Sometimes I even forget myself. I ask again, will you forget me?
And again we'll answer with no.
You'll remember me? Well, in that case, forget about it. I am just a man. Listen well to my story. Once upon a time, the whole world looked like this. Do you think so?
Here we can answer him yes.
Really? You believe something so absurd? I'm happy to hear it. Let's continue. Well, the world changed. Society was developed. The world was covered in water. The dinosaurs appeared. An ice age. Actually, there are still dinosaurs. Is it mixed up? In any case, this island is the only place left I can talk. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Let's answer again with yes.
Funny, I haven't the faintest clue what it all means. But one day, this island will disappear too. We may not meet again in that case. Did you want to meet again? Oh joy. I'll tell you my schedule. Listen carefully. On Thursday, I go to sell the donuts. On Friday, I throw the leftovers in the dumpster. On Saturday, I let it cool on the windowsill. On Sunday, I harvest the wheat. Hold your breath, head to the left, and count backwards to 100. Did you remember to write that down?
And again, let's answer with yes.
How very kind of you. Please take this to remember me, although you may lose it on another day, so be sure to put it somewhere. There's no shame in an egg.
You can answer either yes or no to this, and he'll say,
You are very opinionated. I like you. You may forget me, I may forget myself, but I will remember your kindness. Now, this island will disappear soon. You must depart. If you will it, we shall meet again at that place. Whether 11 hours or 11 years, Deltarune will be waiting. So take your time, wash your face, and get dressed.
After this, the Forgotten Man will disappear and Chris will now change to their Dark World appearance. You head back and you leave in a flash of white. Now with this, I think it's time to lay the preface of the theory, and go back over what we talked about with that in mind. The conceit of my theory is this. There was a world, a game world before Deltarune's, that was overridden and erased by it. This world, this is where the Forgotten Man originates. Notice how the Forgotten Man has no appearance, no sprite. How his rooms in Chapter 1 and 2 are both made from reused assets. Like his sprite, his original appearance is gone, missing, overridden. The eggs he gives us are not literal chicken eggs. What they are really are packets of data. His data. To keep safe and protect so that he can be assembled again in full. Once you remove his data, his egg, that man too disappears. The Man County itself is described as a World Heritage Site. A World Heritage Site. Implying it came before anything else in the game, which it did. We know it's something older than both the Dark and Light Worlds. This is the only location you can have both your appearances in. The only reason you were able to speak to the man at all in Chapter 3 is because the board minigames were reusing some of the data from the original world to operate. And speaking of speaking, let's go back over that dialogue from the Forgotten Man once again. Not all of it will make sense yet, so I'll stick to lines that are relevant now. His first line is a strangely worded aforementioned introduction. Just as sure as the seasons change, he is the Forgotten Man. Next he states how people always forget him, and upon promising not to, he begins his story. Quote, Once upon a time, the whole world looked like this. The world changed. Society was developed. The world was covered in water. An ice age. End quote. Does this sound any bit familiar to you? Look at this line here. Who do we know that's like a dinosaur? Well, that would be Susie, who we meet in Chapter 1. And following that, in Ice Age. Well, that would describe Noelle, who can freeze enemies with her ice magic. But what about the other three? Well, we start with the whole world looking like this. This is the era before the old world was overridden, until, quote, the world changed and society was developed, end quote. The world changed by being overridden with the world of Hometown, and the man was forgotten. This seems to imply a bit that the whole world we play in was created just for Deltarune. But back to that later. So with that history lesson, we'll move forward in his dialogue. If you tell him that you want to meet again, then he'll give you a schedule. Thursday, he goes to sell his donuts. Friday, he throws the leftovers in the dumpster. Saturday, he lets his cooking cool on the windowsill. And on Sunday, he goes to harvest the wheat. Now the first two may sound a bit familiar, especially that second one. Remember in Chapter 2, to find the man, we had to do the room trick by a dumpster in Cyber City. The first one's a little weaker, but there's a bake sale nearby the area you end up doing the room trick. The next two you will see describe Chapter 4 and Chapter 5, and we'll come back to the following dialogue later. In fact, we'll skip over most of the dialogue and go to this last one here. Now, if you were around in the community before Chapter 3 and 4, you may remember something much like this. Back in 2024, one of the newsletters we got had a little gimmick where they sent out random Valentine cards from different characters. But there was one very, very interesting one. Let's read this one too. It's a strange letter. It's more or less completely illegible. But if you squint your eyes, and you squint your heart, for some reason you feel you could understand it. Well, Happy New Year! Or was it the old year? Well, in any case, how is DELTARUNE? As you are waiting patiently, the time is going around. There is even a rumor of Valentine's Day. How absurd. Every day is a day of love, if only you believe it so. Do you believe it so? So, the purpose of the message. I want to help. Yes, there is someone I wanted to help. I seem to have forgotten who. Yes, it's quite ironic, but I seem to have forgotten. Was it myself? Well, no. Well, perhaps. Regardless, when I see them, I'm certain I will know it straight away. I never forget someone I don't remember. Will you help me? You are very odd, responding out loud to a letter, but you seem reliable. I will be counting on you. Now, put on your coat and wash your face. Or put on your face and wash your coat. Not necessarily in that order, or any order at all. Goodbye! And there was something like the sound of walking away, and the letter was gone. At the time of this coming out, we had no reference for who exactly this was. I mean, we didn't even know the name Forgotten Man, but now it's exceedingly clear. In any case, do you believe it so? And let's look at that line near the end. Put on your coat and wash your face. Nearly the exact same line that the Forgotten Man gives us at the end. So, is there anything in this letter that's important? Well, he says that there was someone he wanted to help, but he can't recall if it's himself or us, or some other third party. It also establishes that the Forgotten Man seems to have some other way of contacting people other than through the Man County. That'll be important later. Gosh, I'm saying that a lot, aren't I? That's been quite a lot, hasn't it? Let's move on to Chapter 4 then, shall we? After pacing through this hallway full of windowsills and entering one of them, we find an abandoned library. A book here reads, "And so wept the fallen star, making rivers with its tears. Then, slowly, from the water, something grew. It looked like glass." To the right of this, there's a proxy panel. Roots. The roots. The roots of this game, the world. The roots are the Forgotten Man's world. Doing the room trick between this library and the windowsill, we arrive at a hospital. There's a flying ace serving as a secretary, and past it, a dark room behind a tree-marked door. Inside the room is a character implied to be Sosori, a secret fan character from Undertale that got him as part of the Kickstarter. He's drawing a painting of a man behind a tree. Across from it is his reference, the man himself. The man is pointing and nodding at something in the room. He points towards the canvas where now Sosori is gone, and you're left to paint yourself. Chris, not you, begins to draw what they saw behind the tree. They end up not being able to draw him, instead drawing lines over lines until nothing more than a smear remains. Then, Chris paints the tree over it, painted over everything. This bit here, I have a few uncertain views on, but they will make more sense to explain that after Chapter 5's. Chris gets up, still trying to draw something, but they leave, taking an egg off the easel. Trying to use the sink you were told. But the sink. You ran water over your hands and dried them. Between your fingers, a gray crease glittered stubbornly. You can never wash it all away. And that's where it stood for a year. And that's when I made my last video. But now that we have Chapter 5, we have some new information. And we have our 5th egg. And things get very, very interesting. In Chapter 5, we're instructed to harvest the wheat. And when we come by a field of grain in one of the running sections that we can mow down, it should be obvious what we do. Not exactly a room trick, per se, but by going back and forth, we can cut down this grain repeatedly, causing a blue balloon to arise and float left. This is another little Yume Nikki illusion. In that game, in order to get to the place where you needed to summon Yuboa that you did that similar room trick with, as mentioned before, you needed to teleport using similar balloons. Now in a secret area, you deal with the annoying dog, who is also on the dog chick screens when you try to enter a bad room code into your save file. Completing this puzzle, the man appears for the final time, with his music now being much grander, yet somber almost. The man will give you the final egg, putting his hand on your shoulder. and then shows his hands are empty. He has nothing left to give, and he smiles with a head shake. Then there are these lines. The man waved goodbye. Chris felt a strange melancholy. There's a feeling that they should not look for the man anymore, even though they had never done such a thing in the first place. Well, there's not a man here, but on Chris's shoulders, a weight remained. These lines here go to illustrate that the man is not talking to Chris, he is talking to us. His hands are on our shoulder. He gave us the egg. There's strangely another set of dialogue here if you haven't gotten all the eggs, however. In this case, after receiving the egg, you ask for more, and this exchange plays out. The man nodded vigorously. He pointed into the distance. Over there was another tree. Craning your head, you noticed there was another tree after that, and another tree after that. It felt a bit like looking into a series of mirrors. Your head began to spin. The man saw this and looked concerned. He seemed like he wanted to speak, but... Well, the man smiled. He waved goodbye. For now. This is a very odd description, is it not? Like, what? But then I realized this is very similar to what was described in the Chapter 4 Egg Room, with lines over lines over lines. His world was overridden by Deltarune. He remains in only a partial state, stretched across code. No sprite, just a presence of a man who once was. These lines over and over, calling upon his code, but with nothing concrete to draw. These trees going on and on into the distance. Unless you collect his eggs, you assemble his data, and you keep them safe. Safe from what, exactly? Safe from Gaster, the one who is writing the story, the person who assumedly created the world we play in as part of his experiment, his Deltarune, whatever that may end up being. Gaster overwrote the data of the Forgotten Man's world, but he couldn't overwrite everything, and he definitely was not able to overwrite the Forgotten Man himself. As much as he tried to rub him away, there were always marks, so all he could do was hide him. Let's look back at that Chapter 3 dialogue where the man gives us his history lesson. There's one line here that is rather strange, no? The world was covered in water, but only after society was developed? Well, what do we know about water in Deltarune? Especially water in Deltarune before Chapter 1, the depths. The area the Goner Maker sequence takes place in, where we speak to Gaster and have the soul stolen. Onion-san, if you complete his old friendship side quest, talks about hearing strange music coming from the depths. A similar sentiment shared by the river person in Undertale, who, as you know, talks about Gaster several times. In Chapter 5, Onion-san is implied to have been silenced by the Bookbird for looking into the mystery beneath the lake. The Bookbird also being related to Gaster, being one of his disciples in Undertale. So in that case, is the Forgotten Man's line describing Gaster rooting himself into the Deltarune world via the depths? There's also the matter of the eggs being considered an issue on the console-exclusive achievements, where if you complete the chapter without getting the egg, it'll say, chapter completed without issue. So Gaster tried to silence the Forgotten Man, but the Forgotten Man had a plan. In fact, he had several. He knew something, even if, after a while, he didn't know what he knew. What if it was the Forgotten Man who had contacted Jevil and Spamton? I mean, sure, you could say, how did the Forgotten Man do that if he's unable to speak? But there I bring up the Valentine's letter. The Valentine's letter in which the Forgotten Man speaks to us, seemingly recruiting us. There he contacted us via a letter. So what's to say that the Forgotten Man couldn't contact people through other non-physical means, like, say, a telephone? Let's take a look at how Sham describes Jevil. They say, one day he met a strange someone, and afterwards Jevil started saying bizarre things that didn't completely make sense, but that didn't completely not make sense either. Who do we know that says sometimes bizarre things that could be described as on the surface not making complete sense, but evidently not being meaningless? And you know of another line in this game that follows a very similar parallel structure to that? Not too important, not too unimportant. Doesn't completely make sense, doesn't completely not make sense. Evidently though, reaching out to Jevil doesn't get our man the desired results. Jevil starts seeing the entire world as a game and causes chaos, being overjoyed when they imprison him. So the Forgotten Man moved on to a new candidate, Spamton. We know from his backstory that Spamton got mysterious phone calls, which is odd considering that phones aren't supposed to work in the Dark World. These calls got him dreams of fortune, put in his head that he was going to be even better than Jevil. Unlike Jevil, the man was probably much more vague with Spamton, not giving him all the information, causing Spamton to think that if he can get stronger, he can break his own strings. In the end, even after turning Neo, Spamton is unable to be more than just a puppet. But you know who can get stronger? Chris and Noelle. Here's the kicker of this updated theory. The info that the Forgotten Man has, what he needs to be assembled to remember, it's the weird route. Spamton knows about the weird route because the Forgotten Man told him about it. He probably gave Spamton the thorn ring. That's why Gaster wants him gone so much. It's why collecting his eggs is an issue. He knows the one way to break the prophecy. Remember how the Chapter 2 egg room had graffiti of the tree next to a dumpster? Well, who do we know who lives in dumpsters, who spends a lot of time around these dark alleyways and would be here to write this graffiti? Let's look at Spamton during the weird route real quick. Spamton is the one who goads us into getting stronger, puts us down the path of freezing darkness, and eventually using Snowgrave on Birdly, a spell which the game explicitly denotes as fatal. And how does the Forgotten Man describe Chapter 2 in his history lesson? An ice age. Spamton says during his weird route fight, "I should have known you would have used my ring for evil. Oh, right. That's why I sold it to you. You think making frozen chicken with your side chick is gonna let you drink up that sweet, sweet freedom sauce? Well, you're fucking right. But don't blame me when you're crying in a broken home, wishing you let your old pal Spamton kill you." Spamton tells us that the path we're on, it can bring freedom, but according to him, it won't be worth it. Whatever the Forgotten Man has planned with the weird route, Spamton says it's too much even for him. It's at this point the Forgotten Man reaches his eventual target, the player. Brief side note here, it's rather nebulous how exactly the chronology of the Dark Worlds work, but I think I'm to believe that the past of these Dark Worlds happened before the story began chronologically, as opposed to being created only when the Fountain was opened. Therefore, the Forgotten Man could have messed with Spamton and Jevil before having met Chris in Chapter 1. I want to make the connection in Chapter 3 with you real quick. Remember when I said it's possible that the minigame boards are drawing from the data of the Forgotten Man's world? Look at the sword route. The Forbidden Path began with ice magic, all the weird route symbolism. With the Shadow Mantle holder specifically, his identity is still a mystery, and while I have my own ideas as to who he really is, they aren't too relevant to this theory. Is he a third disciple of the man? Maybe. I just don't know if there's enough to go off of as it is. But with all the ties the Forgotten Man has to the minigame boards and the sword route, I wouldn't be surprised. To me, the one discrepancy is that while it seems the Forgotten Man seems to be pushing you towards the weird route, the Shadow Mantle holder seems to be much more concerned with you getting the shadow crystals. So jury's out on that one. And one last time, let's look at the Forgotten Man schedule. That last step specifically, quote, "Hold your breath, head to the left, and count backwards to 100, end quote. This one's a bit odd, isn't it? It's the only step that gives several instructions at once. But here's an idea for you. With the end of Chapter 5, there seems to be a few different routes the game will go in. There's the weird route, where you and Noelle go against the prophecy. There's the regular route, as you expect, but there also seems to be some differences coming on an abandoned weird route, where you seemingly will be able to craft the ominous Twisted Sword. What if these are all the next steps, just on different routes? We hold our breath as we descend into the lake with Noelle. I wouldn't be surprised if Chapter 6 ends with us heading left past the police tape and making it to the depths that way, and count backwards to 100. It's a bit more vague, but I imagine that will become clear when we get there. There's one other idea, though, for what it could mean. There's a strange item you get on the Chapter 5 weird route simply called bread. The description says that it crumbs up a lot, and it's a key item you can't drop. People are quick to point out the similarity between this and a similar item in the first Mother game, an item which lets you leave a trail of crumbs which could be used to fast travel. There is a peculiarity with this though, a little Pibby glitch if you would. There existed a glitch which could be performed with the breadcrumbs that would warp you to a glitch world. A glitch world which looks like this. Does it seem familiar? Back in Man County we get to peer through that set of binoculars to a far-off land, a place described as harboring evil. By this point, as the Forgotten Man said, the island you visit in Chapter 3 would have disappeared, but this land, one that can only be reached on the evil route, will remain. Pretty solid already, I would say, but there's a ribbon on this theory coming from the recent Chapter 5 patch. This patch adds new dialogue for Pink in her shop, only if you've encountered the mysterious device friend, and if you have encountered the Forgotten Man. She says, pulling you away, "Chris, is your hand okay? It looks like you've got a cat bite. Meow. Cats can be nasty creatures, can't they? Meow. I once met someone who really liked cats. Meow. They liked cats so much, they owned a whole hunting pack of them. Meow. Of course, cats are fickle creatures, but they were very good at finding protein. Chris, if you have any protein, you must keep it hidden, and never let anyone see it. The cats are not too smart, but once they find a target, They never stop chasing it until they get bored. And when they find you, they bite. Very, very hard. Some people would do anything to get away from them. Even change their appearance or go into hiding. Oh, Chris, it's terrible. Mew, it's terrible. Please be careful, Chris. Promise? This is huge. I woke up to the notification of this and I was just awestruck. But here's my takeaway from it. Friend. The device, friends. They are created by Gaster to hunt after and silence anything or anyone that the Forgotten Man interacted with, to prevent knowledge of the weird route leaking out. Look at that dialogue. Pink states cats are very good at finding protein and to keep it hidden. Much like how we have to hide the Forgotten Man's eggs in every chapter. Quote, cats are not too smart, but once they find a target, they never stop chasing it until they get bored. End quote. Sound familiar? Spammed him throughout chapter 2, but most clearly in his lyrics talks about things that are coming after him. Things he can't explain unless you are alone, paralleling how in chapter 3 the Bibliac says it's best you speak to the man alone. The not too smart bit parallels Spamton's sweepstakes where Spamton's